for everything. Unless you are creating new information or updating something.
But the system is going to spit out the amount, right?
Yeah, it's just calculating and showing it basically. It's kind of like a search. You are performing a search, you are reading the information, but nothing changes in the system. When you are doing dealer search, you are typing something, it will show you some results, but nothing will be updated in the system.
So think about it, right? So if I change the amount, all I have to do is change it this to step, nothing else changes.
So you mean the system means it's not the browser? It's not.
The system
No,
is Arfloan,
Arfloan.
right? Arfloan, nothing changes in Arfloan, right? There you may not have post condition for every test case.
Because this test case is a read-only operation, so think about it that way. System is calculated, but you're not changing any data in the system at all.
Should the dealer search his dealership before calculating the loan payment, or can directly access the loan calculator? Like the requirements say, when we spread the first test case synapse.
Right, so when you look at the requirements, right?
I think I have to open.
No, it's in the email, it was
Yeah.
in the email itself.
If you just go back to the test, you will see it right there. Yep. One more.
This one?
No, not school.
Scroll up.
Yeah. Test case is homework, excellent.
Mm,
Go back. Here. This.
So that's the homework that they're sending it on.
Maybe it's in the same, but there you go, homework test cases. Yep. There you go. In the one of the, yep. Yeah,
You know what I'm gonna do?
you can
You
just
download it and
Yeah.
you open it up on this.
So Roger, your test case is there, just need to flush it out a little bit. I think last step is very important. You gotta have that, make sure it's clear. Last step.
On the requirements, 3% of the balance.
Mhm.
So does the system keep track of, balance is like first month, I pay the minimum.
It can be 3% of the balance. It has only
That's what
three,
it says, it's like 3%.
It's a loan amount, right?
3% of loan amount, not the balance.
Yeah.
It can be balanced, because otherwise you will never reach zero.
Yeah.
It's like you are paying for your whole life. That's what credit card companies do. If you do anything,
Right?
minimum
So,
monthly payment, keep on paying.
okay, let's look through. Where did my browser go? Oh, it's back here.
Okay, so which ones do you want
So
to?
let's pull the second one.
Okay, we are pulling Navina yours.
So Navina, this is here, so let's talk through it.
The requirement for this is username is auto generated based on first name and last name.
Okay,
So the test title I've written is auto generation of username.
Okay, be explicit in terms of, remember, there's multiple scenarios. Which one of that?
So here I have so I've spoken about the one that increments when there's more than one.
Right.
so you need to
So
spell that out.
You have to lay it out, right? Auto generation of a username when at least one user with the existing name exists. Okay. And then there's a precondition you are talking about.
You have the same one?
I need your help for something over here.
Oh, hold on, we'll get.
I need to be able to send the mail to
Okay.
you.
All right, you guys continue.
Yeah.
So the precondition I've written at least one plus usernames of the same first name and last name exists.
Okay.
There are no dependencies.
So well, when you say same first name and last name, it's which one? Is that defined in the test data section?
Yeah, so there's a pre-existing
Right, no, no, but even in pre-existing, I need to know what existed, right? So there's no data, right? So when I say it's, if I'm gonna check it whether this thing is true or not in the system, what username and password I should check on? What username, first name, last name, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you identify. Saying, if it's in the data section, just explicitly says as identified in the data section.
The test summary is validate that the system auto increments the username when the same username exists more than once.
Okay, so here's the other thing you need to do. Okay, so a subtlety of the words, right? Auto increments the username, or that's again, what is exist in the system? Same first name and a last name exist, right? And it auto increments the number associated with the username when it does, right? Because you're, let's say if it's Dilip Patel, there are two of them, right? One D Patel exists. Now it auto increments the number, which gets appended to the username, right? So D Patel, and then it becomes a one, right? That's what you want to be explicitly clear. Okay. So let's go in the system.
Test steps is site administrator opens the browser and enters Arfloan application URL. Arfloan URL successfully.
Okay. So in this case, you're anticipating site administrator to do this work.
Yes.
So I would then also explicitly say it in the precondition that site administrator is doing that.
Okay, so I just want to know if we condition. What all do we write? I mean, we just write the factors that are responsible for the test case. That's a predetermined.
Not factors are responsible for test case, but it's essentially what should be true in the system. Right? So in this case, if you want to execute this thing. And if the site administrator user ID and a password is not provisioned in the system, can you do that? So that has to be true, right? So identify what should be valid in the system before, right? It's again, you can start with that list, exhaust it, and then as people get used to it, says, okay, this is given, so let's not do that. Right, but I would, while you're starting it, I would be explicit on everything that you put it in the preconditions. Okay.
Second step is site administrator logs into the Arfloan
Hang on,
application.
before that, right?
Yeah.
Just some consistency, right? URL successfully opened, how do I know it opens successfully? What should be displayed?
The homepage, right?
The homepage.
So you just
Be
need to put the
explicit.
wording.
Because think of it, right? You're giving it to somebody. What does that mean? URL open successfully. If it goes to some random site, is that successful?
But
So-
you're mentioning Arfloan URL, right?
Haven't seen it,
Okay, it needs to be there, right?
right? But again, I would be explicit in terms of it, what application URL, as mentioned in the data section.
Okay,
Don't leave anything for interpretation.
no, I'm with you.
No ambiguity.
So then the next step is site administrator logs into the Arfloan application, logs in successfully, and administrator homepage is displayed.
Okay.
Then navigate to manage user section and click on create new user. New user creation page is displayed.
Okay.
Then is input first name and last name of the user and click on create.
How do you know all I needed is first name and a last name?
Do we?
What do I need it in order to create a user?
To read the
Go ahead, Rohini.
User type also.
Okay.
Okay, let me walk through it because it seems,
One more thing, do we need to put all the requirements in here, like, email address, this, that?
So where do you find that information?
In
Where is that
the system design document.
system design document, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to like pull it up because I definitely think they are getting stuck.
So let Dilip pull up, because you need all the required, minimum required fields you need to supply, otherwise you will get an error, right?
So we need to list out all that.
All that
Yeah.
information.
How do you know what all you need to list? Let's walk through it.
Now, first name is last name is important. right? You can list it out, highlight it, whatever you wanna do. Because that has to be, whatever names you are specifying, it needs to be there. But other fields you also need to supply. So there are Arfloan, SQL training, Arfloan document. Go all the way up to.
Hang on, just give me 1 second.
If you go to training, I think, or Arfloan document, yes, there you are, Arfloan document. Document.
Be in there.
That one has it. Otherwise, Arfloan document.
All right.
All the way down.
Yeah, hang on.
It stays to go
It's
down.
gonna just show something.
Page 34.
I think it's at the bottom, all the way.
No, that's right,
It's on
next
page
section.
34.
Okay. All right. Okay, so this is the entity. So this, I'm in the design document, tells it anything that I want to know about the users. It's gonna be in this field, right? So I'm gonna go look for it where the users is. Okay, so this is the user. Okay. And I'm gonna look at it in order for this user. Identify everything that is required, flag is yes, right? So when you just say it's provide the first name and the last name. Can I create a user with that? Because all I need, everything I needed is, okay. I need an ID. Do I need to provide? No, because it's a system generated. This thing is auto-generated, so I don't need to provide while creating a user. Okay. I need this. Okay. I needed this.
Now you can pick any user type,
Okay.
right? It doesn't really matter in this context.
Well, in this context, they're
So
creating
for
a
the
dealer
dealer
user.
Yeah, dealer user, okay, yep,
So-
you pick.
Right, the other one is, you're right, Harshal, because irrespective of what it is, the username is true universal for all user types. That's how it's gonna get generated. But let's say I'm gonna stick it to your example of dealer user, right? Then, so I need a user type. I need a first name and last name. Okay, I need an email address. Okay, since I'm creating a dealer user, I needed this, right? Because this one says this thing is required for that. For all other is optional.
So how do you get the dealership ID? Like, is there anything listed in the required document?
Okay, hang on. What the first rule I said, your test case is ready when you give it to somebody. Now you're asking me a question. That means you're not sure. Why would I even give it to somebody to test it? Okay, so hang on to that question for a moment. Okay. Do I need this for your case that I'm creating here? Okay, do I need this? That's how you go through analysis, right? And then there's a regional manager. It's only required for this type of users. Okay, so at the minimum, right, what I need is a dealership ID, email address, first name, last name, user type, password, right? Let's go back to your examples. Right? What all you identify? That's it. Can I run this test case? Okay, coming back to that. Dealer ID. So how do I know what all I need to think about it from the precondition? What is your data? Do you think that data is dependent on something existing in the system? In this case, dealer ID, right? So there are two choices I have. Either I first create a dealer and then create a dealer ID, or I put in a precondition that that dealership exists and have to be explicit of what is the dealership that exists that I'm going to tag this user to. Does that answer your question?
So you can mark that, you can pick the dealer ID and.
So
put
you
it in
can
the precondition.
add an additional precondition. To talk about the dealer also exists with this dealership ID. Or. You write the steps. First to create a dealer. Then create a dealer user. Okay. Does that make sense, Navina? Okay, let's continue. Okay,
So then, so this fourth step is wrong then.
No, it's not wrong, you just need to
you
plus
need
it
to
out.
provide additional
Yeah.
detail. It's not
Okay.
sufficient,
It's not sufficient. Either.
right?
Then, input first name and last name and the other, the
Required
attributes
information.
that are required. Then username is created,
Okay.
username is created, validate that the username is suffixed by an increment of 1 for the existing username in the system.
So here's the question. Okay, let's say, for example, I'm creating the Lipata. Okay. Going back to your precondition. You said at least 1 plus, right? Do you know how many?
No.
So how do you know what number it's going to generate it and it's that right number or not?
But
If-
then,
If it generates 2
yeah.
instead of 1. Or 3, right?
Mhm.
So you probably want to flush out your precondition.
So you said 1 plus username, right? Do you know if there are 3 Dilipatel exist in the system? And you're creating the 4th one? You need to know that it's should be generating number 3. Because the first one is without any number, second one is with number 1, third one is with number 2. So now when it generates it, it should generate number 3. You can't just simply say that, hey, it just generates with an increment. Well, what is the increment should be? What if it generates 5?
So
Is
how-
that valid?
how do I-
So you have to be explicit. How many username would that user first name and last name exist in the system? So you will know exactly what should be the next number incremented generated.
So here I have a question. In precondition, dealer ID should be there.
Yes.
Okay,
It should be there as well as the username, whatever you are saying.
The first name and last name. exists.
username, first name, last name, and dealer ID should be there.
And how many existing user with that matching first name and last name already exists?
Okay,
Because then only you get. Excuse me. Then only you can say. What should generate? Because remember, whatever it generates it, I should be able to. Compare. The way it is written, I can't. Test it. Did it generate right? Just because it generated some number, that doesn't mean it's the right number.
so
Right.
in is this 4th step, what should we write? User ID or?
No, so 4th step it should clearly say it's what exactly the user ID is going to generate it, right?
Okay.
In the example we're talking about, right? It should generate D Patel 4. No, we said 3 user exists, right? So it should do D Patel 3.
Okay,
So it should be explicitly that, hey, the user is successfully created with the user ID D Patel 3. So that
Okay.
when the expected result comes in, they say, did the user create it? Yes. 2, did it get that ID? Good. Can I match that?
okay.
Step number 4, like. How we did it in like site manager created, like earlier scenario we worked on here in the class last week. We did like all the necessary, all the required
Yeah.
information, but
Yep.
can we use that word instead of specifically saying first name?
Well,
last name?
again, if I give it to Herschel, does Herschel as a context what I required field? You expect him to read the whole documents to figure it out what the requirement fields are? Unless you specify in the data section required field and list it out everything,
Okay,
then it's different thing.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't just generally use the word required field and not specify anywhere else to tell them what required field means.
Plus the first name and last name here is very important, right? In this test case, so you
Yeah.
want to specify that as well, specifically.
we don't
My
have to say
recommendation-
what first name and last
No, you
name.
have to say that,
Yeah.
What
it
kind
has-
because that's where your test case depends on,
So
right?
like, if, for example,
Yeah.
I have to give the name like,
Yes.
like that.
Yes, you have to be explicit.
That's the one.
So, in the fourth step, you can say all the required information as specified in the data section.
Which
and
is
then
fine.
Okay.
put all the.
All right,
things,
here's what I'm gonna do.
A, B, C, D, all those things.
Yeah,
Would that be fine?
yeah, that's fine.
Hang on, here's what. I'm
But
gonna do.
generally you work with the tools, right? So tools where you can attach Excel files, Word documents, all kind of things with the staff. So you just list it out in Excel spreadsheet and upload it.
Okay.
in The tool.
So, Let's go fix it. Let's go fix it here so that there is a clarity.
Okay,
Okay.
so Dilip gonna walk us through, okay? So it makes sense with the example.
So here, first thing I'm gonna do. I'm just putting a number, right? So again, as you go through it. Then if I go into the step, right? I would do something like that. Okay, this is where I will go back. It says, what do I need? I need a first name. I need a last name. I need a password. And I'm gonna, here for a moment, I'm gonna do it. What else we
And
say?
do we need to mention type of user? Like
Yeah,
whether
hang
we-
on. Hang on a moment. What happened to my? There it is. So I needed it. Password, flag, user. So I did that, email, okay. Okay. So you can just say, this is what I'm looking for. Remember the password rule? What is the password rule? 8 characters. What are the other rules?
One uppercase and one special. At least one uppercase.
Right? Is this 8 characters? This is 9 characters.
Did it say at least 8 or
But it's at least, so we can
Correct.
have 9.
9 and more?
So this is that. Say yes. Okay. So I explicitly say what I'm going to do that. And I'm saying is create the user, right? So the action I'm doing it is creating it. The data that I'm using it is entering all of this, right? So I'm going to turn this things. It's not, it's that, right? Then what should I see, right? Something like that, right? So now I can go and say it's exactly what is created, what is expected results. So when it comes in, I know I'm going to enter all of these things. I'm going to look what the system showed it, and I can compare it. Right? So I know that, hey, I created with this username successfully. Okay, go back to your next steps, right? So this is how you should fix the steps for number 4. Now, the next steps you're saying it is, right? Site admin logs off. So at this point, you're expecting site admin to log off. What should I see here?
This one's for the 6th point. This expected result is for the 6th point.
Okay, so what is these for number 5?
Successfully logged out.
You have to be very explicit. How do I know I had been logged out? Right? So you can't just say logs off, right? So right, these. And this one should be is. This is assuming it is whenever they log out, it takes back you to the login screen, which is similar functionality most of them. You need to confirm that with the dealer. Okay. So then you're saying, yeah. Okay. So next step you're saying is that login as the user by typing the username and password. What username, what password?
The one that's shared. Like,
So be explicit. Maybe that's what I said. One, yeah. Okay. So this one tells you that I'm logging in. Okay. Look at this. Is that what you're expecting? Look at the wording. Site admin will be able to log in as a user. Is that what you're expecting?
No.
So what are you expecting?
Only copy paste error.
Yeah.
Very careful, right? And we all do it. It's called CP programming. Avoid that.
What I meant is like the site admin can test by.
It's not site admin testing it.
Yeah, again, it's the dealer.
You are testing it now, logging it as a user,
Yeah.
right? So. Okay. Now, it's a very important part. Remember, I said it's one of the field which was not required, but I entered it. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to log in. If that flag is not turned on, user cannot log in. Because it tells you that, hey, I'm an active user. Versus I'll be user in the future, or I'm no longer actively logging into the system. Right, so that's why you connect all the pieces of requirements together to figure it out what you need, right? And how do you know on that, right? So if I go back into this one, right? And then look at the active flag, right? Right? Only active users are allowed to log on. Right? So even though the field is not required, I have to put it as true. I can't let it be false. So that's what it needs to be done. Okay. So, yes,
On this, active flag, it says Boolean, right? So is the system going to take it, like, does it make sense that I need to go input like to our
So-
or like some, you know?
but, again, we don't know at the detail. Remember, we are still designing, the system is still getting designed. All it indicates that I'm gonna make this active flag as yes, whatever the way they ask me to either do a check mark or do a true false, whatever they do it.
Could be a question for.
Either that question or whenever they provide it, here is the intent.
It's a
I'm
design
explicitly telling you that make sure you turn on that flag, right? If you don't turn on that flag, I will not be able to log in.
By looking at the system specification, it says Boolean, so.
Yeah,
It's a
so
true
you
or
can just do a
false.
true or
Boolean
false,
is
right?
true or
So
false.
you can just say,
You can say true as
True.
well. How you
Right.
gonna mark true? It could be checkbox, it could be drop down, we don't know.
right.
So you just say set it to true.
All I'm just saying is that I want that active flag to be turned on. That's why it said yes, right? Now, again, as Harshal pointed out, we don't know how the system design implementation is. You can have a conversation, but remember, while we are writing it, system is not built yet. So I don't know how they're gonna implement, but I can definitely say, it's, hey, whatever the way design it, make sure that flag is turned on. Okay.
So if we are going to be explicit like about everything, we should mention site administrator data too, right?
Yeah, you should,
You have it, right?
because look at that.
Uh,
I did that, right? She hasn't defined everything. She should be defining it, everything in here in the data section. She has not done it.
Okay.
That's a missing thing that she still needs to fill out.
We'll send you this.
Okay.
So you don't have to take it.
Then this thing is, it's not just username is incremented. What did change in the system? What just happened in the system?
You are changing the data, right? So what is the data change?
Right.
User, new user.
Look at this. This is what changed. Right? So you can just say, this is what has changed in the system. Right.
I have a doubt. Last week when we did site administration, administrator can log in into the system successfully. When we did the requirement, we didn't mention like anything like that. Like last week, a valid user account with ID and password as specified in the data section exists in the system. That's what the precondition we were doing
Yeah,
last
this
week.
You can do it that way, or like it's, look at this, I kind of explicitly said everything here.
We don't
in-
need to do it.
No, you have to provide the data. Without the data, what he's gonna type in? You can't assume things. You have to tell explicitly what you want the tester to type in.
Now you
It
can.
Right.
can be in the data section.
It could be in data section, could be here. It doesn't matter where you provide it. The way I was trying to do it is because she's saying this, I didn't see any of that specified in data section. So I said, you need to provide all of this, or you can simply do it this.
Not the both. Don't provide both because if something changes, you have to keep
Right.
synchronizing it multiple places.
You can do it simply that way.
What's the
Right.
best practice then, like, which way? Data
Doesn't
section
matter.
or the-
It- The key thing is that whenever people execute it, do they have access to the information that they needed to create it? Now, the reason I say it doesn't matter because some tools, you can do a quick attachment and they can bring in the attachment. Some tool, it's more easier if all the data is there because you're just running it and seeing this thing step by step. It's your preference. To me, Doesn't matter whichever way works for you, make sure that the data is specified. Right, and then obviously some companies have rules, right? So you cannot put the password out open into the description, right? So they always just say, hey, put an attachment, and then that attachment is secure. Only those people who has access can access that attachment and it has password. It's again, follow whatever the rules is defined. The key thing is that this test data has to be explicitly identified. If it is not there, user cannot execute it. Right?
So I have one question. There was no condition that lender can assess the credit application assigned to them. And one of the scenario was one plus application assigned to lender and he is able to see all of them. So in that case, I'm making the test cases, he's creating two test cases, two credit application and lender should be able to see. So do I need to
Yes,
mention all the data? For
Yes.
each of the application?
yes.
Okay.
You can just say it's credit application 1 data, credit application 2 data. You have to. That's why it's a full-time job. You have to explicitly specify. And part of the reason is, if you don't explicitly specify, and somebody is trying to automate, what will they automate?
So here you mentioned that the dealer ID is 1, 2, 3, 4. And on this page, you have dealer IDs already mentioned for a couple of.
Those are the user credentials.
I mean, as a tester, you can create your own dealers, you can create your own users, all those things. You
Okay.
will have access to do that. So these are just
So
for
we can
logging.
pick from this also and.
Yeah,
include
you
it in the-
create your own test data.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to do that both.
So here is some of the things, right? At this point, you're designing it, right? So when you are, I should take it out of this thing, right? So this way it's in easier.
Yeah.
So think of this, right? So when you're creating this dealer user, right? So when I read through the requirements, right, dealer ID is also auto-generated. So all I know is the dealer username and a password, right? So I don't know when the dropdown, whatever the way implementation is going to happen, it's going to have me a free form type in the dealer name, dealer ID or not, right? That's why I just say I need to make sure I'm providing this information, right? Whichever way it is. Now, most likely it's going to happen is you're going to write the test cases. Once you get the system, right, you will have now clarity in terms of how you're specifying the dealer information. Are you putting it by ID or you're selecting it from a dropdown? That's where you can update it. It says, hey, select from the dropdown this particular dealer name. That's why if you look into the right requirements, or sorry, precondition, I specified both of that. Right? As long as I know both of this exists, right? And they said, hey, you know what? When they implemented the system, they're not showing ID, they're showing the name. That's fine. You just go ahead and update this thing to just say instead of this, you just say it's dealer name,
Select dealer name.
right? Whatever they just say.
And sometimes it's a conversation with the developers as well. You can fuss out a little bit further. If you are working in the agile world, you are sitting with the developer right there when they are designing, so that you know what they are implementing. Okay.
So this makes clear in terms of what is expected. Right? Fix the spacing. You can see it mapped it right next to it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you write test cases, right, is that somebody else will be reviewing it that you have?
Yes,
done the
generally your
test,
test
you are not-
lead, he will review it because you will be given a module. Kind of like a maybe managed deal. So you'll be working through that. Somebody else will have managed lender. and so forth, different functionality, they will divide. And then you will have to review with your team.
Again, it depends on how big the team
How
is.
big the team is. If you work at Nationwide, they have 100+ developers working in a team. So you will have multiple people reviews, you will go through multiple reviews and so forth.
So,
If you are in small team, you are on your own.
so if you're in a bigger team, right, do we need to write down our test cases or they will just provide you a test cases and you will?
No, you are responsible for writing it and executing it sometimes, okay? Now, I know Nationwide. has a lot of-
What is your job? Hang on, if somebody else writes it, what is your job?
I would say don't go with the bigger teams, okay? If you want to learn, if you want to be successful, end up with a small company, smaller team, so that you can do everything end to end. And then you will figure out later.
So here is my recommendation, irrespective whether you get in small teams or a large team. Okay, and that's why we ask you guys to review each other's test cases, right? Get into the habit of whatever you write in, right? Have somebody bounce back, check it. I'll tell you, even after so many years of experience, whatever work I do it, I usually pull it up and says, hey, I'm just gonna write all of my thoughts into one place. I pull one of my team member, or even if they are not doing the same job, they just say, hey, you have a few minutes, let me just like sound some ideas by you, right? And they're gonna give the feedback. That gives you a clear thought in terms of what they're thinking, where they're at, right? You must have seen Herschel and I know, we've been teaching, right?
Yeah.
The first thing you will see it's morning is us huddling and talking for literally for 2 minutes and says, this is how we're gonna do it today. Are you on the same page? That's all you should be doing it is whatever you write it, right? Initially, till you become very confident, just go talk to somebody else in the team. Hey, I'm trying to do it. Can you look at that and does it make sense logically? Doesn't have to be nitty-gritty final detail, but does it make logical sense? Right? So when he put it, when Navina sent it out, the moment I saw it, it's wait a minute. You saw it, Herschel, and me just says, okay, there are things missing there. That's the advantage of like it's doing a peer review with anybody, is they can clearly see it because when you're writing the test case, you are in your mind thinking, I already know that, I don't need to write that. The thing that you're missing it 6 months down the road, you don't know what you were thinking 6 months before. Nor if you're giving it to somebody to test it, that they're doing. Because you might be on a project, 3 months later, you might be on another project, and somebody else is doing regression test for the maintenance release they're trying to do it, they're gonna use your test cases. They need to know exactly what you meant. Okay. Good. All right, so we're gonna review one more before we break you guys down to continue with the testing. So let's say,
So
So
did
we
anybody
send
send a
that.
different one? Oh, okay, so one we send one.
all right, so let's look at that.
Is there a question on the chat group?
Just email out later.
Yeah, we already told. Yep.
All right. So let's talk through it. This itself, the title is misleading. Right?
What is your thought, Subhangi? What are you trying to test here?
So I'm trying to write a test case for the Arfloan user when some of the data is missing.
No, what Arfloan? What is the which requirement? Area manager can create Arfloan user.
Arfloan user when
Okay.
some of the data is.
No, so the requirement is, as an area manager, I'm able to create an Arfloan users, right? One of the test cases you're using it is It's not can create it, right?
Cannot
The
create
whole thing is that area manager cannot create after users
when data is missing.
with incomplete data. That's what the test thing that you're trying to do, right?
Okay, it's a
Right.
negative test case that you are doing.
Because think of it, what is it? I can create human psychology, right? I've been kind of teaching it and reading it and that. The moment they read some of them, the brain stops reading everything further. We're gonna move to the next. Specifically, if I'm scanning something within 2 minutes, like it's 30 seconds, I'm not gonna read every sentence. I'm gonna read the keywords. The keyword is can create. Boom, I'm done. I'm gonna look at this and says, this doesn't match what they're talking about. Right? So be explicit, cannot create Arfloan users. And it's not when some data is missing. With incomplete data. That's what you're trying to do. Okay.
It's just a wording that you have to, okay, I know what you are trying to say.
But,
Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's what I'm saying is, think of this as a feedback. We're not criticizing it.
Yeah.
We're telling you things that you need to watch out for. Okay, so let's look at the precondition. Area manager users specified in the data section have some data available, right? Potentially just says that area, so this one, what is the precondition? Who is creating and what should be true in the system before I create it? So it's an area manager is creating, right? It has nothing to do with any of the data because this is your detail that you're going to specify in it. The precondition is what should be true in the system. Do I care whether there is incomplete data? I can't, right? The only thing I care is area manager exists in the system so that they can log in as a user ID and a password to create this functionality. That's all I care. Right? So update that specific for that. Again. Same thing,
Cannot create.
cannot create, right? Okay. So this is the URL. Homepage is displayed. Okay, so this is the data, this is the home page. All right. Then log in as area managers. Okay. Navigate to that. Okay, and click a new user by providing information as specified. Okay. Again, instead of that, it requires more information. Tell it that a message is displayed indicating that all the information needed to create that user is not provided. Like, so be explicit on that one, that there will be a message. Now, here is the other thing, right? When you talked about these things, okay, so all you're providing it is this. Okay, are you providing user ID? Or is it not generated?
So you
Right.
cannot provide.
You have to be
any-
very careful on that.
Right.
If your password fulfills the condition, then it should. Because remember, you don't want to create multiple things that is missing so that there is an ambiguity of what exactly the meta message system is going to generate.
So you want to provide valid test data,
Only one condition.
right? Because here the password does not meet the requirement of the password, so it will not allow you to log. It will throw different kind of error. Okay? So you want to make sure it conforms
Yeah.
to the requirement.
No, I give the password for area manager to log in.
No,
So
that is
then be explicit,
okay, so that is, so it's not a test data for creating a user. It
right?
is
So
for creating.
again, so then break it down separate, right?
Yeah.
So this one, the way I would do it, Arfloan, right? And then I would just say,
Okay.
right, so now I know that this thing is for logging in. Right, now, obviously, this things I can provide that, right? So the username, user type. Can I do this?
No.
Right? So all you provided is first name and last name. So I would just say, try to, so here's where this, right?
Well, it will throw you, it will not allow you, so it will give you all the what is missing, right, at that point, and you won't be able to create.
I have a question. If you are like asking it to create with all valid information, should we specifically say what kind of person, like a data name, username?
Yes, you have to fill out same way, the
Like
create
that's
user,
how
yeah.
we did like last
Yeah.
scenario. we
Yeah.
have
It's
to
the
do
exact
it
same way,
Yep.
Same.
right?
We have to do
But here, what she's saying is that I'm not gonna provide everything. Because I'm testing a negative scenarios that if I don't provide things, they should not be able to create, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of updated it, right? So be explicit that, hey, I'm providing only these 3 fields. Right? Instead of just saying create user by providing this, right? All I provided is type, first name and last name. Just by it say that.
अच्छी किया तुमने ब्रश किया
Can you?
go brush your teeth, wash your face, see, look your face, it's dirty.
Can you put yourself on mute if you are not talking? Yeah. Right. So here now I'm kind of just saying, I'm trying to create this user type. Right, so that I'm just saying, say user type is this. I'm also specifying, I'm not just creating any user. I'm creating this, and what information I'm providing, first name and last name. And I'm clicking a create, and that's when it should throw out an error that, hey, you have not provided all information. Okay, now post condition. Here's my question, anything change in the system? Does it matter whether I was not able to create or not? Because it's about the system status, not about what I did it or not. What changed in the system, right? So you don't need anything
So you
here.
can leave it blank.
You can just leave it blank because nothing has changed in the system.
I have one question about the status, so. I just copy pasted.
That's
that,
okay,
I
it's
don't
planned.
understand what-
Have you
What are
executed?
the
No,
status?
right? So again, this is, you're doing it a manual, right? Once you start using the system, it will automatically put the status itself. That you have designed it, you planned it, versus you executed versus passed or failed. So that will take it. All it just, it's an indicator. I have not executed yet. I've just done the design. I need to execute it. At that point, you can just say it's passed or failed once you execute it.
And when you put notes, like in which scenario or what,
So there are a lot of feedbacks in the tool, you can easily see it. They put a lot of back and forth, like if somebody is reviewing it, they will say, oh, something is not correct in this tab, please correct. It's not right.
And you can create iteration.
Because team members not gonna be sitting in one room, right? They might be somewhere in India, China, who knows? But-
Right.
So they all will be looking at.
they will provide the notes. in the
They
draft.
provide notes also sometimes. If there are intrinsic, like it's if you need to set up certain things in a specific order only.
Yeah.
Then they will put the note, right? Like it's if this says, hey, here are the 5 conditions. Right? But so for example. When you put the notes, right? Let's say you're doing it in Amazon purchasing, right? And then in some of the notes, you can just say, make sure the certain data is added or provided only in a certain format in order for do that, right? So you're providing all of these things. But the step-by-step instruction, you create this, then you create this, then you create this. Right? But if it is all possible, right? So when there are poor design decision is done on the system that requires you to do certain things only in a certain order, those kind of things you can put into the note so that the tester knows, hey, when I'm going to set it up this test scenarios, I need to make sure this thing is done first, then this things, then this things. Right?
Yeah, it can be anything.
It could be anything. It's a mean to communicate what else I need to know or aware about this test case.
So when somebody is reviewing your test case, they can put.
They can put a
under notes,
feedback,
whatever.
Feedback. That's how I mean, most they
Yeah.
use it, but you can use for other purpose.
So what will be the test summary? Like a test summary,
In this case,
or like. if
what do you think it should be?
No, not this case, I'm asking, if I'm providing all the data. So how it should be.
This
I
takes
mean, it's
somebody-
not test summary. The test summary is this about test. Test data is different. Test data is different.
So you have the live, so you want to make sure whatever you are testing, you want to summarize in there?
Everything,
Yeah.
whatever I do, even if I'm giving first name, last name.
No, not that.
Hang on,
No,
hang
don't
on.
need to do it.
So again, I'm not clear about your question.
No,
When you say test summary,
The first one.
it is
yeah.
this.
So if
Has
I-
nothing to do with the data section.
Okay, so if, like in case, I'm a area manager, I'm creating a dealer user with all the net valid data
Okay.
which I have. So the area manager can create dealer user by providing all the needed.
Valid.
Yeah.
That should be
Yeah, it's a
That's the
description of what exactly the test case is covering.
all the
right.
valid data.
So in this thing, right? In this case,
Okay, no.
With missing information or required
Right.
information, right? That's what we are trying. So you can just type it or write it.
yeah, this is fine too.
Yeah.
And he does not
Yeah,
have all this.
that's not else.
This is
Yeah.
fine. It's just the word not, because that's the explicit what's happening. Okay. Good. Do you understand which we went through the three? What you need to do it. Okay, so it's an action time. It's 10:15. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys 45 minutes. As a group, remember, like you're supposed to finish writing 9 test cases. As of this one, right? So outside this test cases, we covered additional homework requirements, right? So let me pull that. Right? And everybody wrote the test cases for these things, right? So we reviewed one of the test cases here. What I want you to do is, if you have written this test cases for 2.1, 2.2, and then any other test case that you might have written during these things, focus on those 3 requirements. As a team, share your test cases, detailed test cases with somebody else. Talk through that. And then based on the feedback and the discussion, we did that. Get to a point where you think it is ready. Okay, so I'm expecting every table and everybody to have one test case completely ready, which is the things that we have not reviewed here, okay? Don't show the same thing that we reviewed it. It doesn't add any value to you or to the class. Hang on, let me finish it. Okay, so pull up your written test case, find a person sitting next to you, review it. Do the same thing with theirs. Okay, review it, give the feedback, and then do that in the first 15 minutes. Spend next 15 minutes fixing your test case to make sure you take all the input, provide that detail. And then the last 15 minutes, review it to make sure everything that you fixed it now makes sense and it's ready to go. Okay, so everybody should have one test case ready by the end of 11 o'clock. Okay, and same thing is going to happen across all, right? So every table should have 4 ready to review it when we go through it. Okay. So pick one of the test case from the 3 requirements that I mentioned. Create users, lender can access only their applications and then can approve or reject only. Pick one test case from that. But the 2 people who are collaborating should not pick the same one. They should pick 2 different ones. Okay, review it, go through that cycle, make sure it's ready, make sure all the provided data is there, make sure all the steps make sense, make sure all of the expected results make sense. Right, and look for even the wording like, right, can create versus cannot create, be explicit. Do that. Okay, so you have 45 minutes to do that. We'll go till 11 o'clock to do that, and at 11 o'clock we will review it. And for online, we're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna assign one of you in the room to do that. Okay?
I was still working.
Let's get started. So I'm gonna do the screen share. So see, Rohini, you sent it an updated one.
Yes. yes.
And Anjali, is that the one that you sent was the updated one? At 10 o'clock? No, that's an old one. Okay, so let's start, Rohini, with yours. Now we'll just review the other one. So let's give the context in terms of this is approving or rejecting credit application. So let's walk through it. Go ahead and talk through it.
So this is the lender approving and rejecting the credit applications module.
Mhm.
So I took the negative scenario. The lender has an approved application assigned to him.
Mhm.
And then if he tries to change the status to rejected, the system should not let him
Change anything.
change it.
Okay,
That's the scenario here.
Okay,
So the title is lender rejecting already approved credit application.
okay,
So for that, the precondition is, the lender user should be available on the system.
okay,
There is a lender user. And also at the same time, the lender, that particular lender user has at least one assigned application, credit application assigned to him.
okay. So you are not creating, but you are putting in the precondition.
Precondition.
Okay,
right.
So,
Just a couple of things. I would put the either application ID here or identify as identified in the section. And instead of calling it should exist, I would call it exist in the system, because that has to be true before you can do that.
so instead, so take up exists in the system.
Right, because when should exist is you're saying it might be, it may not be.
Okay.
Versus exist is it has to be there.
Exists in the system. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay,
summary.
so somebody talks through that. Okay, let's talk through the steps.
So, in the browser, we go to the URL.
Okay,
Okay, and you have all the data
Yeah.
specified here.
And then the lender user ID as mentioned in the data section.
Mhm.
The lender logs in, uses the user ID and the password.
Okay.
Logs in. Lender's homepage is displayed
okay,
as an expected result for that. And then the lender is going to click on access credit applications button.
Okay.
And list of credit applications assigned to him are displayed.
okay,
Select a customer application and the lender is going to select a customer application whose status is approved.
Okay.
And
All right, so who reviewed?
change
Did you review with her? Okay,
yeah, which, yeah, I didn't change that one.
so my question is, which one? Do you have clarity in terms of what you did that? Do you know which ID to pull? Or you're hoping that there will be something with approved status?
The ID she selected, as he mentioned, she should be mentioned the ID.
so you should put the ID in the
ID.
precondition, right?
This,
Okay.
Also, that ID should be here.
Why would that be ID, like, pulling an application from the list, right, like, application.
But
Which application? Which application? Which application?
So I'm thinking, looking at approved status, like. I thought.
I know.
You are hoping that there are something is approved. That's not a repeatable case. You have to be explicit which ID it's there, and it's not customer application, it's credit application, right? Use the consistent wording,
Okay,
right? But without ID, I don't know which one you want me to pull.
okay,
If there are 5, which is already in that status, which one of the 5 you want me to pull? Right? Never hope, be explicit.
so in the list,
That way.
Pull the specific
IDs are
application.
there,
Yep.
Customer application IDs are there, I'm going to.
You have to tell which specific ID you want me to see here.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you do this, what if there are none? What do you want me to do? What if there are 10? Which one you want me to pull?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Again. How do you know this?
So error message should be, yeah.
Then just be explicit, right? What would you see it? What is the expected result? When you say, I should not be able to change it, great, but what would I see it?
Cannot reject the.
Or what would I see?
Yeah, it should be, that should be.
Right, so then be explicit, right? The system will display the error message.
Or they are not able to change the status.
Or, yeah, flag it, right? That status is a read-only field and I cannot change it. Be explicit like that. Okay, as I mentioned, right? You're missing the IDs. The application ID
Yeah.
that need to specify. Yeah. Also,
Post condition, I'm not sure.
you don't need a post condition. Did you change anything in the system? Nothing has changed. There should not be need anything.
But it is getting there. I think it's almost there. You are missing maybe few minor items, right?
Yeah.
Which you can easily correct and, yeah. going forward.
All right.
And the voice should be affirmative, right? Like should like.
Yeah, you can just say, if it has to be true, then you just basically make sure that people follow it. Right? Yeah. It's just a language thing, I mean, but as long as you are clear.
As much as you can be, provide a clarity. That's what it is,
That's
right?
all.
Don't leave it people to interpret. Do you mean this or you mean this?
Everybody good?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you write the test steps,
Okay.
and then you have the expectation result.
Yep.
The second test text, is it based on the expectation result that you have on the first one? Or you write the second step based on the first step?
No, you write the second, so first, what you are doing basically as a user, think you are a lender, you are logging into system and what activities you are doing, that's what you are capturing here.
Can we have one conversation at a time, please?
Because all the activities you are doing as a lender here. So you need to capture step by step, what is that you are going to do, because you might be doing, you might have access to do 10 things.
Yeah.
Right, you are focusing on, okay, in order to change or approve status, how do I get there? And then what action I'm going to make it. in the
So
system.
you work on the step first, all the steps first that you can come up with, and then.
Yeah, as a user, as a user, how they will use the system, right? As a user, how you would use your system, right? If you have access to any system.
So sometimes, depending on what you're doing, the output of what you're observing will get into the next step.
Next step.
For example, right, the creating a dealer user that we talked about earlier, right? We created with this specific ID. And then my next step was it's log out and log in as that particular ID, right? So the information that you got in here, sometimes you will use it in the next step. But your flow is, you should think about this flow first of how you're going to use the information. And as you go through it, how you're making sure that this is working or not.
Okay,
That's what the expectation is.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Does it, okay, on her 10th step, she said, click on access credit application. Does it matter? Because the person saying they received the application through like an email. So does it matter?
No, you are following.
You're logged into the system.
Yeah.
You're logged in the systems. At this point, you're not even doing it whether I received the email or
Or
not.
not?
So you are following a specific flow here, right? If there is an email you are doing testing, then you have to follow a different flow.
Right.
Right, okay. So in step 4, we have to mention the correct application ID that we're going to click on.
Right.
Which
Because
is already in an approved status and then try to change it.
Precisely.
Right.
That ties back to the precondition. Remember I said, make sure you identify what application ID either there or in the data section.
now, if you don't have that precondition. Right, assume that you don't have that precondition. If you want to make it repeatable, then you want to put those steps in order to create the credit application. Note down that ID and use that ID to
First
go and
you approve it,
And then, so you.
then log
put
out,
all
log
those
back
steps,
in, try to reapprove it.
Right, so you can use that ID basically. I mean, I would suggest you put all the steps, not leave anything in the precondition.
So you have to mention right from how you send the credit application with that ID.
Log in as a dealer.
The whole flow.
You add additional steps here, which are maybe 6
Yeah.
or 7 steps you have to do.
Yeah, so typically whenever you're building a repeatable test scenarios and automate, you have to go through it because you can never guarantee is that application ID will always be there. Typically, there are multiple ways you can do it. Is a lot of times, before writing the test cases, you also have like it's, hey, I'm gonna run the script to make the system ready with that. And then I'm gonna run this test case and I'm gonna do a script to clean up. And then that's what it's get automated, right? So it doesn't matter whether you set it up a precondition by writing the steps within the test case is one way, or you can just say, hey, I'm gonna make it a direct insert into database with all of the field required. So I'll write a database script, which is essentially gonna get executed before I run the test case. That's gonna make the system ready for the preconditions. Then I'm gonna execute the test case. Then I'm gonna do a cleanup, which will clear it out any data that I might have changed it. So I'm putting back the system. So I can run it that over and over again.
So, in the initial phase, when we're actually doing the tree diagram.
Mhm.
So do we assume that the system is not being set up? So we try to find the most rudimentary way of going and trying to figure out what it is, because
Depending on the complexity of the system. Right, so if I'm trying to test a functionality. That's part of a complex system that goes like 5 steps before it. It may not be practical for me to write a test case with 700 steps to set up all of those things.
Okay.
That's when you create a database script and says, you know what? I know I need to update this, and this table to that. I'm gonna execute the database script, do that. So now system is ready. I'll run this test case. Make sure it's following whatever it needs to do it. Get me the result, whether it pass or fail, and I'll do a cleanup, which will reset the system back to the state it was, so that I can read on it, right? So then I can package those pre-database script, the test case, and a post-database script into one package and says, now this is a repeatable scenario.
Okay.
Yes, Rohini, you had a question?
Mentioning keeping the precondition is not a good idea, I said.
For auto-generated things, anything that's auto-generated and you are using in the steps, I would suggest avoid that as a beginner, basically. You put write down the steps because those things you may not have access to create script, basically, and all those things. Plus, it's very difficult to replicate, make it repeatable, those test cases.
So in this case, then I have to put the steps for creating the application.
Application, yep, then log in and lender
Yeah.
approve it, and then you see, then you check it, see if you are able to change the status after you are approving. You
So
approve the
log in as
application.
a dealer.
Yep.
Submit an application.
Yep.
Fill out all the information, submit an application, log out as a dealer.
Yep.
Then log in as a lender.
Which has access to that application.
Yeah.
Then you approve it.
Yep.
So now it's an approved status. Now you go and say, once it's an approved status, can I do anything? Can I change it or reject or not?
So in the steps, I don't see where this person logged in as a dealer before.
No. So she has put that as part of the precondition. So if you look at
Okay.
that, right? So what Herschel is showing it is if I take out this precondition, then what all steps I will add it in order to make it repeatable.
If I don't have this precondition, there is no credit application. So first I need to create the credit application and go through the flow. approve it, and then try to change it, see if it works. And that's how I think you should be writing the steps. Put more details as much as you can.
So in the pre-condition, you need to write about the dealer and the login ID with it.
Yeah,
Dealer
Everything.
you just say, yeah, then you just say, hey, dealer user exists with this credential, and then that's all, right? Because at that point, you're just making sure that I have the right users in the system, and then they are able to do all the work. Right? So,
Alright,
Okay.
any
So
other
in
question?
this step, once you send the credit application as a dealer user and then you log out and then you log in again as a lender. And then you change the status from pending to
to
approved.
approved.
So do you have to log out again and then go back again trying to change up in that?
You don't have to, you don't have to.
Because you're already logged in.
You already logged, right? What I'm just saying is that if you're trying to make it completely repeatable, those steps that what I talked till I log out precedes the fourth step that she has mentioned here. Right?
Right.
That's all I'm just saying.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Let's look at it. Let's
so we did
use
not
the
really-
online one. So Anjali, which one you want us
Yeah,
to use?
Yeah,
First one or-
the last one that I sent you. Yes.
Okay. All right. Tell
So,
us what requirements and how you going through it.
mhm.
Again,
So,
this is a requirement, right? Not
yes,
the mo-
yes, I just wrote there so that I know that when I am telling you that what is the main requirement.
Okay.
So that's why I just put there. So main requirement is lender can only access the credit application assigned to them. My test case is one credit application in the system and it is assigned to ABC lender.
Okay,
My precondition is at least one credit application assigned to ABC lender. And the test summary is one credit application assigned to ABC lender.
yeah, so now here, look at the precondition, right? The precondition is nothing but just rewording the same thing as you did for the test title. Is that a valid precondition? You should just be clearly out, lay it out. What is the credit application with its ID? And then say that it is assigned to the ABC lender, right?
So this X1 001 credit application assigned to ABC lender.
Yeah.
Again, we're gonna repeat the same thing. You can create the credit application, follow add those steps.
Right.
Basically, the process,
Okay,
if you want to make it repeatable.
okay, let's see it. Let's talk through your steps.
First one, we have to log in into Arfloan and Arfloan URL page. Second one, we just use our dealer login and use ID password that I have mentioned in the data section. After that, we access the credit application section and we create a new credit application. For that, the data is available in the data section. Once we create the data credit application, we select the lender.
So in step number 4,
Mhm.
okay? When you create the applications,
Mhm.
and step number 5, that you are actually selecting a lender. So this 2 steps is not clear to me. In order for me to successfully create a credit application, I have to assign a lender at the same time. It's not afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Also, I would be explicit and says, what is the credit application XYZ? So take down that number because that's what you're going to access it later,
Mhm.
right? So don't leave it things for interpretation and says, hey, which application, right?
Mhm.
What you're talking about specifically, the one that was created as part of step 4 is the one that you want to be accessing it later as a lender,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So think about collapsing step 4 and 5 and 6. Right?
Okay.
That's one step process. You cannot break it down into separate.
Okay.
I mean, 5 and 6, I mean, 4 and 5, you definitely collapse it. 6, you can, it depends on if you want to have a separate action, it's
Mhm.
fine. Yeah, otherwise you can collapse all 3 together as well. Yep.
Okay.
Now
Okay.
log out as a dealer
Okay,
and log in as a ABC lender.
Okay.
Once you log in, you can see that you have received the notification that you have one credit application assigned.
okay,
And-
is required. So when you say notification section, I didn't see anywhere in the requirements which talks about notification section. It's only the emails,
Mhm.
right? So is the step number 7 valid step?
Are you referring to the email? Is that what you are talking about?
Yeah, it's something you receive so that you know that you have one application assigned.
Okay, so she probably is talking about email notification.
Yeah.
But see
But
that you don't
again-
have to log in.
Yeah, I'm saying is this, you don't keep it tied.
Yeah.
Because once you log in, right, whether you receive the email or not, you should be able to see the application.
Okay. Well, actually, I did not add this one, but while we were talking about, and I was receiving some of the suggestion that you should see something like that. So I just
No.
try to make something that,
Yeah, but again, the key aspect is when somebody gives you a feedback that doesn't make sense based on our requirements, you should
Push back,
push back or clarify that.
clarify.
okay,
Just because somebody gave a feedback, that doesn't mean you're gonna blindly add it to your test case.
that's true. But I was also learning, so I thought, yeah, it might possible that I can add something like this, so I did it.
So there is no notification section, right? And the email has, whether you received our email or not,
Mhm.
the thing is assigned to you, you should be able to see it in the system itself,
Yes,
right? Now, when you say access credit application and enter, what exactly you're talking about?
like,
So she needs 7 and 8.
That's what I'm trying to figure it
We
out,
can
right?
go to number 9 and verify that you are able to see credit application XYZ, whatever the ID.
Yeah, so here, that's where number 9 step, you need to tie it back to whatever the credit application was created in step, the combined step 4, 5, 6.
so you are saying there will be no 8 step direct NAND.
Or you may just say it's, again, if you're thinking about the access credit application section,
Mhm.
description is not clear,
Mhm.
right? So that is, think of it, if the people have a question, what do you mean by this? That means your steps or the English description is not clear.
Mhm.
Do you refer there as that, hey, once I log in as a lender, I will have essentially a section that I have to click in to say view all the credit application assigned to me? Then just be specific in that.
Okay,
Right. There's nothing, right? So this is just navigated to that particular,
yes,
right? And then again, when you say one credit application received, is that the expected result? Right, be specific, what are you expecting? Here, you're able to see it and verify that this application that I'm seeing it is assigned to me. That's what you're not receiving anything yet.
okay,
Yeah, I think it's a wording, but conceptually it is.
So what I would recommend is, based on the feedback, go back and
Mhm.
update your test case. Okay? Okay. Okay, so here it is, right? Do you have an interest rate that you need to specify?
Loan amount.
No, I just made it by my.
Don't make it. Don't make it. The first rule I said, don't assume things,
Yeah,
okay?
But on the same thing, the applicant address, was that a requirement?
So in order to create that, because she is creating the credit application, he has to provide all the data for creating a credit application.
So in order to do step 4, she needs all of that,
Okay.
right? And I would say, Anjali, there's a lot more than just that.
yes,
Okay. Again, here is my recommendation. You're
Okay.
starting it. don't take the shortcuts.
Mhm.
If you're not willing to put the effort needed to specify everything it's needed, you're gonna repeat the same thing at the work.
Yeah, what you are doing is training your mind, right? I mean, it's a subconscious mind. You will do the same thing at work, basically. If you
Right.
don't write down all the details, right?
So do we need vehicle information also here?
Whatever credit application is required,
Everything required.
puts on that. That's why I walk you, right? When I created user, I actually flipped into the requirements to show you what all I needed and put it.
Let's go ahead.
Does it need to match the entity? The name?
Yeah, it should. Just don't make up your own names.
It has to.
Yeah, all the fields that says required, at least bare minimum, you need to put that.
Yeah.
Now, in this requirement document, you are referring to the entity or identifying the fields that you need to put. In the different requirements, you might have something else. They might have it on the screenshot. They give you all the fields that are marked required and you use them.
Also, I think it's, Rohini, back to your question. Does this name have to match what is defined in the system?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, because without it, how do I know which field needs to be populated with what information?
But my question is like on the screen, you might see little different.
Which is okay, but you know you have to provide the.
Think about it,
requirements.
designers are going it by the same design document that you're going in. Right? If they decide to change the name, right? So instead of like it's putting it like it's applicant name, if I just change it person name. And when you're trying to go through it, do you think it's gonna match? You're gonna try to look for where is the applicant name, right? If it's not there, you're gonna put a bug, says the form doesn't allow me to enter this. Right? And the developer has to do it, says, oh, I meant that. Well, what does it say in the requirement? If not, he has to go back and fix it. Right? Because there's a significant value, it has to match, otherwise how do you know which one where? Right? If there are like 5 phone numbers, which number I enter where? Right? Mhm.
So there is an ABC lender, if someone has created the same ABC lender, that should show as an error in my system or like.
There is no your system versus her system. There's only one Arfloan systems. You're just two quality assurance of team members writing test cases in that. Right? And that's why it's important to be explicit. Because you don't want to step on each other's feet.
I'm like 1 or 2, like ABC 1, ABC 2, like that, or like.
No, you both can use the same data. There's nothing wrong with it. But just don't do anything that essentially invalidate the other person's test case.
Like we gave you the user ID password, right? Everybody is using the same one. You don't have your own. You can create your own users, basically, but you can still use the
So
same.
I can assign for a lender to someone, right? The other, the lender. right?
There is no lender assignment. There's only application
No
assignment.
application, so I can assign, right? Like,
Right, but when you assign it. Right? Look at the steps that she did. She created it. At the time of creation is where you assign it. Once it's assigned, can you go and change it? No. Right, so it should still work.
Plus the ID will be unique, right? Application ID will be unique and. she can
You have to be
create it
mindful, right? You just say, hey, I'm gonna run a test case which deletes the lender. That's a dangerous. Because now you're impacting everybody else's test case. So you have to be mindful of what you're doing. It's. You cannot have your own multiple copies of the system. That's not feasible in a real world. Everybody's gonna share the same test instance. If there are 100 testers working on that systems,
Okay.
they're all gonna think about it, right? If you're building a software for airplane, everybody's not gonna have a copy of their own airplane to test small things. There's one airplane and everybody tests on that. Right? You just have to be mindful. You don't delete other data.
Okay. I think, yeah, go ahead.
So with this scenario, she created the application. So what if in
Yeah,
the pre-condition?
Her precondition does not match what her test tests are.
Yeah, so what if in the precondition, she already
Yeah.
had the application
This one-
created?
It will remove. it.
She has to remove the
The
precondition,
precondition, okay.
Yeah. right? That's what I'm saying is,
This one will be gone.
you have to be very mindful of what you're writing in precondition. It's not saying one thing here and creating other thing. It's gonna be kind of clear. All right, let's, so Anjali, you know what all you need to do to fix it?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, it's almost 90% there, 10% changes, you're
All right.
doing it, okay?
let's take somebody else from the class. Have you sent anything else?
Okay, let's get one from the team.
You just sent it, I don't see it. Oh, this one? Okay, so you're using the other scenario. Okay. So walk through it.
I think it's the same one, right?
No, she's saying is assigned to somebody else that I can't see.
Oh,
The other one was, it was assigned to me, I can.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Okay, so that's the lender XIZ exists. What is the difference between lender name and lender username?
Lender, who's the lender and it is
Okay.
his login user ID and password,
Okay, exists in the system.
application ID. And to ABC is
Who is ABC?
the lender. The
So
other-
be explicit in that.
Okay,
The ABC is a lender, right?
okay,
Because if I read this,
okay,
that 231,943 assigned to ABC,
okay.
assigned to what?
I just missed it.
Okay. So,
I just put the
What?
dependency.
so if it's preconditioned there, you don't need the dependency.
Dependency. Okay.
If you go through, could you go explain the dependency here, like, I always thought that's.
It's not that, she should not have that dependency.
Is that an external system?
It's external.
Yeah, it's not that. She's trying to put the same condition that is in precondition into dependency. That's what we talked. It should not be that. Okay. Let's walk through it.
So the browser navigate the Arfloan system by typing the word.
Okay.
And log in, and then we can able to access the Arfloan homepage
Okay,
and the lender user, XYZ.
Hang on, so try to align this whenever you write it. So it's an easier for people to read through it, right? So this one is navigating through that, getting to the home page. Then you're logging as a lender user XYZ with the password and ID.
So then can log into the system.
Okay, it's not about can to. What is the expected results? Be explicit. It's not logged in. It's actually lender user at this point should be logged into the system.
and they are on the.
And they are on their homepage. Okay.
Now, Dilip, on this one, right? So user XYZ, so is this a XYZ is a user?
Yeah.
User
It's a lender.
or it's a lender?
Lender user,
So use the consistent terminology.
okay,
One time you're saying it's a lender, other time you're saying it's a lender user. Don't confuse it. Pick the same,
So lender is a
Okay.
company and lender users are belongs to who are working.
right? So I would put it L training. That's what you need to log in.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so the other thing is that when does it, then you log in XYZ. Okay. So
It's the system. Yeah, go ahead.
when you do this 3 steps. Is that guarantee that you cannot see it assigned to anybody else? So here's my question. Right? You said that this exists in the system assigned to this ABC. Okay. Okay. Just because they are not able to see it in their screen, does that mean they can't access it? So all you did is, right, is you logged in. You said that there is system existed there. In order to verify and make it repeatably, here's what I would recommend. I would recommend it is actually don't do it only the XYZ. Log in also as ABC. Make sure they are able to see it to validate that actually indeed exists.
Yeah, that's. the
And then
missing
they
part.
can see it. then log it out, and then log in as XYZ and see it. Can I see it now or not? Right? Because it's not sufficient, because it's not here. Does that mean nobody else can see it? Or what you're trying to prove it is ABC can see it, but XYZ cannot see it. So you have to put the steps also to say it's log in as ABC. Pull up this particular, can I see it in my list of that? And then do it, right? And that's where you're going to see it is that, hey, so this steps, probably you have to repeat for both the lenders in order to make sure one can see it and other one cannot see it.
Then only you can prove it with the 100% sure.
Okay,
That it goes.
so then I have to put the test data like for ABC.
Login credentials, right?
Login credential.
Yes. Right, because the application ID is still the same. All you do is ABC can see it, but XYZ cannot see it. Again, you don't need to change anything in the post condition. Because you didn't change anything in the system. So. Okay. All right. Let's say. Do you want to see anything else like it's?
So in this, what she just did right now, that do we still have to go through the whole process of creating the credit application and then sending it also?
You can potentially if you want it.
I would
Let's just
suggest you
say-
do that. I would suggest you do that.
All Harshal is saying is if you want to make it truly repeatable. Just create the credit application first and do that, right? All I'm just saying is if you already put that as a precondition,
That is already being created.
that is created, but you still need to do all the steps that we're doing, right?
Right.
So. To me, it's a two-step, right? What Harshal is saying is that be as explicit as you can in all the detailed steps is so that you don't have to rely on preconditions,
Okay.
right? So that will get you into the mindset of is, hey, can I make it repeatable? Because the way that this thing is, it is sort of repeatable, but you're relying on system to make sure nobody messes with the system. Versus what the way Harshal is saying it, is you don't have to worry about the system. People could be doing simultaneously multiple things. But you are doing it such a way that you are completely reliant. You're eliminating all the external factors as much as possible.
Right.
That's all he's saying. Right? And that's the normal right way to do it. As you go through it, it's like it's right. I'm just taking you one step at a time. Okay, you know what the precondition and what do I need to do? Right? Then you have to go through the next step and say, what do I now need to make it sure it's completely repeatable and not depend on the others? Okay. Let's look one, like it's my, I'm gonna pull it up from yours. Okay, you did the,
I did access one, lender only can access assigned application.
but what specific scenario? Help me understand. All you're saying is that they can access credit application. It's not about approval or rejection. Versus what module name is saying.
Module name approve and reject credit application.
So are you doing the approval scenario, rejection scenario? What scenario you are doing?
I'm doing lender can only access the credit application assigned to them.
Okay, that's what we already did the review it. So it's a repeat of what we talked about here.
Then you probably need to correct.
You need
your
to
thing.
correct, you need to fix
Yeah,
what.
I need to correct it. Can you guide me what I need to correct?
Well, we reviewed that just now.
Oh,
It's
yeah, we reviewed.
the exact same. So I would recommend do the exact same thing as what we kind of told them. It's exact same scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Can we
Right.
do the one where you have can reject or
Approve, reject.
cannot modify the application? Yeah. I think that's, yeah.
This
So
one?
then J3 scenario, okay, we can pull that up.
Jason, you want us to walk through it?
Yes, let's go through it.
So,
Yeah,
still lender cannot modify the credit application. So the lender should be assigned already should, as I have not mentioned, like the dealer, he has to create a credit application. And as a dealer, he has to create a credit application, then again, I need to assign to the
Lender.
lender.
Okay.
So after that, only he can able to see, after that, he can go inside and he can change it or not, like, as a lender, he can change some number or not.
Okay. So test summary, I think you need to be a little bit explicit, like it's there, right?
Okay, that, like, I don't know, like, how to summarize it. We need to,
So all you just say is it's like it's lender is not able to modify any data in the application, but the application status, right? That's what the description is. Okay, so let's walk through the steps. So you're logging in as a lender.
lender, this is the lender ID and password.
Okay, that you have specified here.
Then he'll go to the application button, like, where is the application,
Okay.
so he pulled out the application. So select like X or Y or Z application.
Okay, this is where I would be explicit with the application ID rather than just say select any random application.
Those
What if there is
applications-
no application?
Plus, the data itself is incorrect. You cannot have the alphanumeric values, right? It's not X, Y. If you look at the application ID field.
It's a number.
It's a number. So you probably don't wanna have this type of data,
Okay,
okay?
we need to specify the number.
Yes.
You need to
whatever
specify the application ID specific one,
Specifically application ID, okay? Which is numeric.
right?
So
So-
he is going to change the amount, he's going to try to change the amount from 5,000 to 6,000. So we cannot able to change the amount.
Is that what you amount is only thing, or what are you verifying?
I'm going to change whether he can able to change the application, the lender can able to change the application or not. So I'm selecting the amount.
So I would do it different, just because if they can't change the amount, what if they're able to change everything?
That is the same.
But there's no steps to do it,
Okay.
right? So I would probably change this thing is, once it's done, right? Just try to see it if you can update any field,
Okay.
right? And then you can just say it's the entire application is displayed as a read-only, and I'm not able to modify it,
Okay.
right? Because that covers the whole scenario, not just the amount.
Okay.
Because
That's
The requirement is that they cannot change anything, not just the amount. The way you're written is only talks about the amount.
So in the display, like I need to say that,
Not this, there's no display, right?
No,
So there's
so-
the expected result.
that's only
Yeah, so in step number 4, verification step, you pull up the details, right? You are pulling up the details, so you just verify that they are not able to modify any
Anything.
information. And then you stop right there.
Yeah.
You don't need 5 and 6, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Log out is extra step, you don't need. You stop at the verification. What are you verifying?
If any of that is not in a read-only format, that means I can change it. That means it fails.
We don't need to give any particular example for that, right?
No, you just verify that
You
all the.
need to give
fields
a
are-
specific application ID that is going to be pulled in that.
So I don't.
And then you say it's entire thing in a read-only manner. Right, so here's an example, right? So think of this way, okay? Let's say, as a user. I'm go,
PDF file, right?
yeah, let's, no, hang on, I'm trying to like it's, here's what I'm gonna do. Okay. Okay, let's say. Let's say I go to CNN.com. Right, it comes in. Okay. And the requirement is this, hey, if there is a news article, I cannot edit it, right? So let's say I just do it. This article, right? So I pulled this article. Is there any place for me to edit it? All I can do is read only. Right?
Visually verified.
Usually you're verifying that I cannot do it. Same thing, you pull up the credit application. Can I change anything? If I'm not able to change anything, that means it's verified, that it's a read only. Move on, right? So that way you don't have to say it's, hey, I'm doing it only the amount or this or that. You're looking at the entire application because your requirement is for everything, not just for the amount. Okay.
So in this case, it's okay to be vague, but not mentioned.
It's not vague. I'm just saying that I'm verifying the everything is a read only,
Okay.
right? Because when I say everything, that means anything in the field. I cannot change it.
Because here we are not mentioning any particular section that we tried out and then we said, okay, we are not able to change it, not able. to
Yeah,
change it.
I'm just doing it not vague, right? I'm just taking anything at all. Irrespective of whether it's organized in sections or it organized linearly. It's everything is presented to me as a read-only data.
Now you
That's
can be
all I'm
explicit
verifying.
here with accept status. Okay, if you
Yeah.
want to clarify, just accept status, everything is read only, which is fine.
Yes,
So what if your test title is the positive of, because you did the negative test where you cannot modify? What if you can modify if that's the test title? Would the steps be different? Or the
well,
same?
remember. So that's why you need to think about it, right? So is modification, I cannot modify versus I can modify. It's a mutually exclusive, right?
Right,
So if I'm able to prove one, the other one by behavior of mutual exclusion, it's already proved.
yes, because I did the positive test case where I said they can modify
Modify what?
Modify what?
the application. But
Well,
my steps.
no,
are-
that's not positive, that's a negative test. You're
Okay,
thinking
yeah,
from the
that's it.
context of requirements,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So if I'm not able to modify anything,
right.
does that also indicate that I cannot edit anything? Do I need it a separate case? I don't.
They don't need it, yeah,
Right, as
because
long
my
as-
steps are almost similar, but my.
You don't even need it. Forget step of similar or not.
Uh-huh.
By proving this, I
Right.
already said that I cannot change it.
Okay,
If this failed, that means I could change something.
right.
So it's something.
So in that case, it would be a bug.
Yeah, hang on. It's fine.
Yeah, that you won't care about.
What my understanding is, we stop at step 4.
Yep.
Like, I'm selecting 1, 2, 3, 4 application items. And then as an expected result, I could say that the application data is
Is read only.
Read only. That's it.
Verify that application data is read
Yeah.
only and I'm not able to change anything. Right.
Yeah.
It's a visual verification, right? You are
Yeah.
not.
You had something? Can I request all of you one thing? When we are having a one conversation, having a side conversation, essentially it makes harder for the people who are on the phone to hear it. So can I request all of you, there is a time where we're gonna have you do a multiple conversation. But if you're having one-on conversation, focus on what the other person is asking and then wait for the turn to do that. Okay, go.
So like Sharon mentioned, in the case when we're testing it out and we are able to modify the data, that means it will be considered as a bug, which will then need to. go
Right.
back and-
So it's a failed test case that requires that, hey, system is not behavior as expected behavior. And therefore you need to fix it so that it behaves according to what is expected behavior. Mhm. Okay.
The lender can change accept or reject. or
Right,
like
that's a status.
Status, right? But then will it be considered in data only file?
So think about it, right? So that's an application status versus an application data. Those two are two different things,
Okay.
right? Now, we don't know how they will visually present it, right? You can just do it as here's the application status at the top. And here is the application data at the bottom. Right? So all you're saying is that I cannot change anything at the bottom. It has nothing to do about can I do anything at the top or not.
But the status comes under credit application, that's why.
But as a user, I do not enter anything for credit application status. So even when I'm creating it, it is not saying that, hey, do I want to put the status into the planning or submit it? They don't.
I'm
System automatically picks it up.
I'm asking. about the vendor. Like now we are using login as a vendor, right? If
Right.
it says read only file, we cannot touch.
I'm not saying read only file. All we're talking about it is application data is all read only. Which is different than the status. And that's what Harsha was talking about. If you want to be explicit, you can just say everything except the status is a read only,
Oh, okay.
right? That means I can change the status, but I cannot do anything else. Yes,
Can
ma'am.
we also say grayed out, application data is grayed out instead of read only?
Again, I would prefer the word read only rather than grayed out. Because grayed out talks about a specific way that the people are going to display it and doing it,
Okay.
right? It may not be, right? And as you go into the newer world where you're trying to do everything is accessible format, right? They may not be visually looking it, they may be listening it. And all you're just doing it read only rather than a grayed out.
Okay.
Okay. Does this give you a clarity in terms of, so you are there, but you still need to be a little bit more tighter in terms of defining the words, defining the precondition, being explicit in terms of data. That's the area for all of you to focus on.
Now, this is going to be your bulk of the work in day-to-day activities, right? That's why we are focusing heavily on this part. Make sure you do the homework and follow, able to write the test cases in detail and so forth.
Yeah. Once you have this thing, it doesn't matter what tool.
Yeah, tools are tools,
You
okay?
can pick 10 different tools and do the exact same thing.
And we'll-
But tools won't help you unless you have this understanding.
Do you think we can do one wherein, where you're creating a credit application, but I want to see what all information, because I know there is a whole long.
Here is what I would challenge. We talked about whole things. Why don't you give a shot at it? And then let's review it.
Well, you will have some more homework.
I have
For
done-
Thursday, so-
I have created credit.
You have created, right? So why don't you write it? Have her review it and see if it makes sense. Because that's the thing that you need to get comfortable. Right? It's not about me writing explicit example for you to look at it. Right? We give you a guardrail. Can you write it? Because as you go through it, right, your systems will be different in there, right? Are you gaining that confidence around the process? So I want to initially focus on the process, write it, right? And as you're writing it, you will have 10 other questions. If I'm writing it, all you're doing is you're observing it, right? When you're writing it, you're figuring it out. Hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. I have questions. Let's talk through it. Right? So I would still strongly recommend, why don't you take an attempt at it? Maybe today at home. Let's talk about it tomorrow as we go through it.
Yeah, please pick the requirement from credit application submission, right? That section, right?
Create it.
But there will be additional requirements. in the homework, sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Again, here's my view. The more you write it, have you heard like it's the word is that the Olympians do it, right? All you see it is it's just like it's that 5-minute window that they showed up into Olympics. You don't see it, the amount of the repeatable effort that they do it. And that repeatable effort just makes it a muscle memory for them to do that. That's what you need to get used to. Write as many test cases as you can. So that it just becomes a normal.
Yep,
Right.
it feeds into your subconscious mind, right?
And then once you write it, right? And I'll
Yeah,
tell you,
sure.
when I started my career so many years ago, my first job was to read through the document and start building out test plan and test cases. That repetition helped it, right? So that's why personally, and we can quickly look at it and say, no, it's missing this, it's missing this. Why? There's a muscle memory is already built in. You need to build that muscle memory. Because as this is 80% of your day-to-day work. Writing test cases, building a test tree, executing test cases. That's what it's all about. Right? The more you're comfortable is, the easier it will get into. Any other questions? Okay. You want to talk through the DevOps?
Yeah,
Go through it.
okay.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, so as I said, I mean, the homework, I'll send it out. It will be due on Thursday, right? So, and it will be additional requirements that we'll be working through. You have to create the test scenarios, break it down, and come up with the detailed test cases. Okay, for those additional requirements. Tomorrow onwards, we'll dive into the technology side. starting with the DevOps tools and so forth. Okay, now in order to do that, you need to have certain accounts created. If you already have a Hotmail account or live account, any Microsoft like Office 365 or anything, then you should be fine. But if you don't have it, then go and create the account, first of all.
So which one do you prefer, Hotmail or Live or?
Outlook.com. Basically, if you have any of those accounts, then you don't need to create it. Okay.
It's an application. Should be open.
I would keep it separate from official.
Don't use any company-based account, just go to the outlook.com, right? And I'll just show you quickly here.
No, you don't need to, you don't, so. So you may have it, right? So depending on if you already have, when you log into your window, you simply.
I mean, if you want to spend maybe 10 minutes here following the steps with me, we go ahead and do that because we're gonna need those accounts set up for tomorrow. So that we don't spend time on this type of things. Okay, so go to the outlook.com.
Just go ahead and create it as we talked about, right? So log into your computer.
Online folks, please follow the steps as well.
Okay. Just go to just outlook.com.
Yep.
That's all, type it in the URL.
And click on like a create new account or use another account, right? And I think you will see on this screen, create one. Okay.
Just go ahead and do it now.
Yeah, go ahead and do it now. I mean,
So that if you run into any issues, we can help you through.
right? So yeah, everybody's here with me on the steps.
No, not yet. It's saying create free account, this one.
Just go to outlook.com.
Okay, let me go here, outlook.com.
Okay.
Okay, so it says sign in. Okay, so click on sign in. And if you already logged in with different accounts, I'm just gonna click on use another account.
Otherwise, you will come directly to this account.
Yes,
So the moment you click sign in,
you will be on
you
this
will come
screen.
to this particular screen that I'll show you. So make sure all of you are there. Is there one?
No, I'm not here. I'm not getting this one. Outlook.com.
Create a separate new one.
Yeah, it's a internet facing site, so you should be able to get to the outlook.com. Just type in outlook.com.
Okay. We'll prompt you, bring you to that screen. You know,
Okay.
you are on the same screen as him. Create one.
Click on create one. If you are here, then click on create one.
To outlook.com. No, it's here, a whole bunch of different, just type outlook.com.
Okay, and I'm going to write whatever username I can remember. Make sure you write your own username. If you want to type it in, what's your name?
Outlook.com and hit it. Click on sign.
Okay, so
log out from here.
make sure you put something that you remember as a username. Okay, don't try to use the same one that I'm using.
Just go to outlook.com. Again, if you're already logged in, it's gonna automatically take you, so just log out.
Yep.
Pick a new one. My recommendation is to keep things simple, for this, create a new one.
Yeah.
And just remember that user ID and the password. Yeah, so now create one. And then follow the steps that he's doing.
Okay, so first it will ask you for password, obviously, right? So you will supply the password. Make sure you write down the password because a lot of people forget what password they created.
Yeah. Okay, what do you guys?
So
With
what-
that,
click next. Then you have to fill out some basic information, okay? You can put some fake names, whatever you want to do it. I'm just putting Intellect software. You can put your name, it's fine.
as long as you remember the user ID and a password,
Password.
that's what it matters.
That's what it matters. Yep.
Microsoft is gonna force you some validation.
Yep, but date I always put fake one. Make sure
fake
you,
one.
make sure you remember the fake one because that's
The
something.
easiest way to remember is put whatever the month, year you want to associate with it.
Yeah.
Put a birth date with that, then you.
Okay.
Make
And
sure
you
that
might have to plug
The
in your
year,
phone
then you don't
number.
put it this year, right? Otherwise Microsoft says you're too young to create an account.
Yeah, don't put this year. Yep, that's correct.
So. Pick at least, pick 2,000, who cares?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, it will ask you for
It will
security
ask you
code.
the phone number where it's gonna send you a verification code. Okay, make sure this one has to be a valid one. And write it down, your user ID and a password as you go through it.
So create an account, I can put my email address or I have to,
No, create a new one. It's a brand new email that you are creating. Just like getting a different email account.
okay,
Make sure you remember the username and password, okay?
okay.
All right, so once you are there. So it's good. This part, everybody's good.
Pause on Herschel, let's make sure we concentrate there. I see people are in different phases.